Good evening, everyone. This is Chrissy Comet's Conversation, and I am your host, Chrissy. This is our Wednesday segment, the Get Over the Hump edition. And as always, I like to salute our first line workers and any essential workers that are out there because we are still in the midst of a pandemic. Remember to always mask up if you're not vaccinated. And if you are vaccinated, do what feels right for you. This evening, we're going to talk about something that is very important right now to a lot of children around the country as we're ending the school year. We're talking about literacy and education. And my guest this evening that's going to talk to us about this topic is Jerald L. Hoover. Hi, Gerald.
How you doing, Chrissy?
That's right, my family. I have so many talented people in my family. I can pull them out of a hat and keep going. So this is my cousin, Gerald, and he is a author, producer, professor, I can't get the word right.
Documentarian.
There we go. Couldn't get that word to come out correctly. And as well as a career specialist. So you're here to talk to us tonight about literacy and how it really shapes us in our everyday lives, how we can't live without it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Gerald.
Sure. As you mentioned, I'm a documentarian. I'm an author, career specialist, and producer. A few other things. Motivational speaker. And I do that even with a stuttering problem, which is probably my biggest accomplishment.
Wow.
As opposed to being a book writer, me being a documentarian. Me being a sports writer. Me being a person that can speak in front of a crowd without stuttering or without going off track is amazing to me. That's probably, like I said, the biggest thing that I'm most proud of, because I stuttered since I was a child. And so the fact that I had to write a lot of things down as ideas because I couldn't speak well morphed me into my career as a writer. I started writing when I was actually 8 years old. I was in third grade. I wrote a book called I Was a Sad Boy. And I wrote that because my mom and dad was going through divorce. And so writing was, I guess, therapeutic. It was my way of not becoming a knucklehead. I mean, I was a knucklehead, but I wasn't a bad knucklehead, if you would. And, I got whoopings too, but I wasn't like in the street knucklehead. And writing.
When people say they had whippings or spankings or punishments, it shaped them into better people. So
yeah, but they don't feel like when they shaping that booty at the time. I don't care what nobody say. Anybody tell me, especially when they tell you this is gonna hurt me worse than it hurt you, I'm like, yeah, stop it. Stop lying. That's a lie. From now to kingdom comes a lie. And, I was mischievous, but I wasn't devious, if you would. And writing always allowed me to mind travel. Writing and reading always allowed me to mind travel. So writing kind of was like an elixir for my life, if you would. I started writing my second novel. Well, when I was 8 years old, I wrote the book. I wrote my, I guess, memoir, whatever it was. I was a sad boy. And then when I was 15, I wrote another book that I started on. And I never forget, I let the teacher discourage me from writing that. I was about 5 chapters in, and he kind of like, I told him to look at it. And he kind of like just did some stuff to it, and I never forget that, because I was in 9th grade. I was like, I let somebody derail me. You know what I mean? Now that book was about race relations, because at that time,
that probably
yeah, blacks and whites were really going at it. Blacks and Jamaicans were going at it too. It was really crazy. And I grew up in Mount Vernon, outside the Bronx, and so race relations was like really, really bad. So I wrote a book about it. I was trying to get a young black boy and a young white boy to be friends, but I kind of did some other stuff to it. And the teacher that I spoke to was a white guy. So I'm not saying that was a racial thing, that the teacher.
No, it was just something that you noticed and something that you wanted to bring forth and have a conversation about, to gain more education on why that was the same thing that we're dealing with right now, and that our children are asking us right now as to why just because of the color of skin doesn't matter who lives where, or who goes to what school, or what friends play with, friends and dates and all different things. So I can understand that even in the ninth grade of having to ask that question during the time of what year was that, may I ask?
That was 78, 79.
Yeah. So that was
between 78, 79 and 80.
Born.
Yeah, it was like in that, and it was right outside the 70s, very, very early 80s, before 81 though, definitely. Okay. But yeah, and I let somebody discourage me. And I think that's probably, I'm gonna say it haunts me. I mean, because the book is still in my head, so I could still, write another one like that. But
well, we definitely going through that today. I mean, nothing much has changed. It actually seemed like it's getting worse and more.
Well, and we're gonna touch on that. And now, as time went on, I wrote My Friend My Hero, the book that's out now, and I started that in my last year in high school. Incidentally, I had to spend an extra year in high school, which was a blessing in disguise, because I would have gotten out of school when I was 17, and I wouldn't have known what I wanted to do. Actually, I went to Norfolk State for a little bit, but I didn't even go there until the spring semester. So like when I graduated in '84, I didn't go right to college. I waited until December, the January session, the spring, and so it was, and I was 18. But by me staying the extra year in high school, My Friend My Hero, the book was born. And because I had extra time, I had.
And during that time, had you conquered your speech impediments?
No. I was still stuttering. Now I'm gonna tell you a good story about that. With that, I'll tell you. Matter of fact, right after I introduced why I wrote the book, my mom, my dad was he's gone now. He was a drug addict and alcoholic, and a lot of family members on my dad's side was really messed up with drugs. And so I wrote a speech, and when I was 17, before I turned 18, and the speech wasn't directed toward him. It was directed toward other 17-year-old, 18-year-olds. And the speech was directed toward helping them to see a better day, not to do drugs, not to do alcohol, violence, all that kind of stuff. So it was a motivational speech, but written down. Okay. But I had no forum to put the book. I'm not, we didn't have fax machines back then. We definitely had blogs and internet. So I had nowhere to put the speech. And I got to say, God gave me a platform to say, okay, develop characters. Like it was almost like I got a Moses movement, come up with a book. and I will never forget, I was playing basketball in 4th Street Playground here in Mount Vernon. And I had this epiphany, like come up with this character and let characters and let them be basketball players and let one of them give a speech. And that came to me in June, July. It was in the summer months. But I didn't start writing the book until October. But every day was in my head. Every day it was almost like a calling. Like every day I was thinking about this book, thinking about this character, and I even knew the name. I was going to use the name Ben or Bennett, and that became the character. Okay. And long story short, I wrote the first draft. I started in 1983, and I was done with it about maybe 2-3 months.
I was 1 year old.
Oh gosh, isn't that crazy? I wrote the first draft without reading a book. And I'm gonna tell you what I mean by that. All throughout high school, because I can write, I would always take shortcuts. So when teacher tells us to do a book report, I would just get a big book, a thick book, and just read the inner notes, come up with some words, and just bam, I get A's. I never got less than a B. I mean, I used to write
words.
I used to write love letters and book reports for my friends. You know what I mean? I mean, literally, because I used to watch soap operas too, but growing up, because we didn't have internet back then. So when I stayed home, I watched All My Children, Ryan Soap. I mean, we just watch them, and I got some of my buddies who watch them too. So we watching the soap operas, and so I know how to put words together, and I write love letters for their girlfriends and everything else. They get the credit and the woman, but I wrote the book. I wrote the letters. So I started writing the book by hand because I didn't have any utensils, didn't have a typewriter. I didn't say computer, I said typewriter. That wasn't a misspoke and misspeak because we didn't have computers back then. So
Not
I
at all.
wrote by hand
Mm-hmm.
every word from chapter 1 to chapter 20 by hand. And
Which
so
is
I wrote
something
the
that we
first.
take for granted these days. They took calligraphy and writing out of a lot of schools, and that actually helps with understanding literacy because
We're gonna talk about that.
words that you're writing.
We're gonna we're gonna chop that up in a couple of seconds. I promise you, because we have to get on that because this is why I'm on the show for you tonight. So our cousin Ronald, I trusted him to read my stuff, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking he was gonna read it and tell me how great it was, and I think he did. I think he read it in about a week. I'm he gave me a tongue lashing, right? He made me read 5 books. And I went from my ego was up here to where I had 0. I mean, he made me feel worse than that teacher that told me don't write. But what happened was he could see a story that was brewing. He could see something that was there, but he can tell that I hadn't been a reader because I mean, of books. Now I read the Bible because I'm a Bible fanatic. Read sports, so I read stuff, but I love newspapers, and I love magazines. So when he was questioning me, he said, "You don't read." And I said, I read all the time." He said, "Well, what do you want to?" He said, "What do you read?" I told him, I said, "I read the Bible and I read magazines, newspaper stuff."
So
And he says, and I'm saying what he said. He said, "That's great if you want to be a sports writer or a journalist or a preacher." And just so happened, I ended up becoming a Sunday school teacher and a journalist for sports journalist for 20 years. I covered the Knicks and the Nets for 20 years.
Wow.
And it was so funny. I mean, he kind of spoke that into existence. But he made me read 5 books. And after I read the first book, I read that in like 2 days. I felt like I was on top of the world because now I knew what he was talking about. And then I felt really good because I started something and I completed it. And then what I mean by that is because when that teacher told me about even just writing that book and I didn't finish, that haunted me because I didn't finish it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I let somebody tell me not to do something. But when
left something incomplete.
Right, but when Ron told me those 5 books, and I picked up 5 books and I read them intently. Thinking he's gonna ask me questions about it. He didn't ask me one question. But I gained so much knowledge on what to write. So I would say 2 weeks later, when he gave me the manuscript back, I rewrote it. I knew what I was talking about. I knew it. And so then when he saw the next draft, he knew I was serious and he knew that, he can help me do it. Now, here's the funny thing.
That's good to have. Basically, he was your editor. And that's that's very, very important for people that are writing, that are looking in the direction of being a writer or, books.
And he wasn't merciful. He wasn't. It wasn't no family business. It wasn't that.
No love.
No. He was worse than that. The teacher, his guy. And if I never forget, there were times when he could tell I was getting lazy, or getting tired because I could write something. He could tell the intensity was tail off.
Changing.
And I knew because I was trying to get to the point, and so he knew I took shortcuts, and like he would catch it, and I would start laughing. And he'd be like, "It ain't funny," you know what I mean? But he ain't laughing saying it. He's like,
like if you're gonna do this, you got to be serious about it. Let's get this done right.
Chrissy, but I mean, but when I say like, she's like, "No, you and I have good bands right now. We laughing and whatnot." When I laughed, no, he got like he acted like I was taking money out of his pocket. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how serious it got. And I'm like, well, why are you waking out on me like that? And then, you know what he told me? And stay with me. This is 40 years in the mix now, almost. He said, I want people to buy the book because, no, he said, I don't want people to buy the book because you wrote it. And of course, me being a young knucklehead, I'm like, duh, why not? And his thing was, I want people to buy the book because it's a good book.
Right.
And that always stayed in my mind after I got over that smart remark, I said. But I know what he meant. Now check this. I got a draft together that I was able to send out to publishers in 1984. June 1984, I sent out my first one. Got rejected. Avon Books. Well, I should be giving them a plug, but I'm doing it. A1 books, they rejected it. And this is funny because this is after I spoke to a lady there, thinking that when they get the book, they're gonna love it. I'll be on Oprah and all that.
Life is good, right?
Got rejected, 1984. I'm like, whoa. So I'm like, this is strange. So I rewrote it, I touched it up again, sent it back out. Rejected. So now I'm thinking like, okay, what are we doing here? Now I'm not gonna go to college now. I'm like, this ain't right now. I need this money. I'm going. I need this money and this car. I want Oprah waiting on me. I'm thinking like all kinds of stuff like that. So got rejected again. So now I'm off to college. Now I'm a freshman. I meet this guy. I declare I'm gonna get his name. I'm gonna do some research to get his name. He was a senior president. He was a class president for the seniors, right? He found out about me that I wrote a book. Now I'm getting it's in manuscript form. It's not a book. I mean, it's manuscript. Nikki Giovanni came to campus. So I asked her to meet her. He said, okay, I'll give you 15 minutes. So he took me to her room. Now I'm the only freshman that was even allowed to be there because it was a senior thing that she came to talk to. So he let me do it. Cool, dude. I think he was an Omega. Yeah, light-skinned brother. I mean, if I saw him, I would know him, right? I praise alive. But I went into the room with her. So he took me to meet her, and we talk, and I'm stuttering because I'm nervous.
Right.
She's like, calm down, relax, just meet, whatever. So I sit on the they put it in the big office, like a lounge. And we talk, and she said, you have class? I said, yeah, I'm a freshman. She said, I want you to stay with me. I'm like, what do you mean? She said, I want you to stay with me for the day. And I'm like, don't go to class? I'm like, she was like, she said, I'll make it so that I'll give you an excuse. You know what I mean? Right. So whatever. I went on note, but whatever I'll handle it with your professors. Okay. Whatever, she saw something in me. And then we ended up talking. Now it's funny when they came back to get me because they left us private. She was like, "No, he's gonna stay with me." And it was like, "You sure?" And he said, "Yeah, I want him with me." So we talked for about an hour because I can't remember what time she was going on, but we spoke. And she was a crazy sports fanatic.
Okay.
But we talked about everything from life, relationships, men, women, men with women in terms of like how to respect them. I mean, she just gave me, I was like,
wow, to be a fly.
And then she said, I want you to sit on stage with me, but not like visible. So when she went on stage to talk to a crowded auditorium, I was on the side.
Right.
So a lot of times she would say stuff and she said, yeah, my friend over here, but yet people couldn't see me because I'm behind the stage. But I'm in her earshot. I'm in her peripheral, but I'm behind the curtain. But I was like, man, I'm on stage with Nikki Giovanni. It was crazy. And so when she was leaving, she says, when you get your books published, she didn't say if, she said when. So when you get your books published, I want you to get on every microphone, every this and speak and just talk. I said, I stutter. And she said, get over it. I was like, what? I mean, but that kind of,
right.
When she said it was kind of like, I know you stutter. I've been talking to you for 8 hours. I've been decoding your words for 8 hours. I know you stutter. But what she said, if you want to make money in this business, you got to speak.
Yeah.
And she might not even remember a part you meet me, but it turns out she was best friends with Marlene's aunt, our cousin Marlene's aunt.
Oh, my.
They're out of Ohio, but Marlene's aunt on her father's side, right? She was her name was sister out there. She was a nun. She was best friends with Nikki Giovanni. I didn't know it at the time.
You never know who. We were talking about that with one of my previous guests. You don't know who's in whose circle. It's important to treat each and every person that you come across in your life with respect and dignity, because you don't know when you'll come back around. And it's the same thing to them, to treat you with that same respect and dignity, because they don't know when they'll see you again. So that's amazing that you're in such a small circle and didn't even know it.
You know something, Chrissy? Okay, let me sidebar. I'm gonna do something that I got a job as a college professor because of who I worked for when I was 14.
Wow.
I'm a college professor now. I'm an adjunct professor. Hey, I'm gonna tell you, this is the craziest thing. My grandma chick, she was a seamstress. God bless her. And she used to go to this fabric store called Westchester Fabric, right, in Mount Vernon. And one day she walks in and said, "Milton, hire my grandson." That was the owner, right? He had a brother too, right? And he says, "Okay, Hilda, send him in. No interview." Now this is like
I can hear her voice saying it, so I already know.
Follow this now. No, matter of fact, and the other guy was Jack and Milton. Jack and Milton, two guys, Jack and Milton. And she said, "Jack, Milton, hire my grandson." It's okay, Hilda, sure. Bring him, tell him to come on in. We can use a nice young man and get the fabric and I'm a stock boy for fabric. I go in, no working papers. I'm about 14. You know what I mean? No interview.
Uh-huh.
You Hilda's grandson. You start tomorrow. Boom, right? I work and I'm doing my thing. After school on Saturdays. Never gave no trouble. They were Jewish owned fabric store. And they trusted me so much that they would let me behind the cash register. And so if we got busy on a Saturday, it was like, Gerald, get the cash register. Now I'm gonna tell you what was weird. Now you was a baby then, right? So you go to cash register now, you ain't got to count. All you got to do is say,
just type boom, it in. That's it.
And it works for you. Back then, no sir. It was, you got to figure it out. Then, no, I'm going to tell you what I said. Hey, a customer, let's say something costs $9.67. I'm going to give you an example. These trifling so-and-so will give me something like $10.33. You know what I mean? Something crazy like that. I'm like, oh man, I gotta think twice now. Now, store's crowded. You know what I mean? Because they didn't want change, they want a single dollar or whatever. Right. So they would give me, I'm like, yo, I'm
mess you all up.
Messing the brother, messing me all up. I'm like, oh man, the store's crowded. I'm done. But now,
how easy to have it.
I never stole from him, and I had to think twice. I had to learn to think twice. Never stole, never gave him problems. When I went to travel with the band, and I got to go somewhere this Saturday after, like a trip like Philadelphia, Baltimore. I was able to get off at like say 3:00. I got off early, but I never, I was a good student. A good worker. I worked for him for 3 years, right? Now follow this. So remember the name Milton. So this is in 81. It's 7981, right? I worked for 3 years. 2014, right? 2014. Now my agent used to have me come to LIU and Mercy College as a guest speaker. Okay. I would come to his classes, just talk, for like, and matter of fact, he had me doing that from 2006 to 2014. I would just go there like maybe 3 or 4 times a year and just talk. I didn't charge him because he's my guy. So I didn't charge him. Anybody else was paying me to speak. Right. But I would go and just talk. One time he tricked me and had me do a 3-day event with a graduate class. And I had no idea. I was teaching a graduate class. And he didn't tell me that until after the 3 days. He said, you just taught a graduate class. I said, what do you mean? He said, you was teaching. Why don't you, I'm like, what do you mean?
Teacher, right.
You were actually teaching them.
Being a speaker, you becoming a teacher.
No, but I was doing assignment. I was giving them stuff like, because in sports and management. So I was giving them exercise. But I was doing it based on my knowledge as a sports writer. And, I was doing stuff like that, put things together. But it was graduate level. Long story short, that was like in 2011. Long story short, we at LIU Brooklyn one day, and I just finished talking. He said, well, I want you to meet somebody. I said, okay. Now I'm suited down, briefcase and a whole bit. So I go and meet
Milton.
This man. White guy, silver hair, beautiful soul, beautiful name, beautiful person. And, we started talking. And so my guy, Cliff, says to Eugene Spatz, he said, Mr. Hoover, tell Professor Spatz what you're doing in Mount Vernon. Because I'm doing the documentary on Mount Vernon basketball called 4 Square Miles of Glory that my guy likes to brag about because I have a lot of NBA players and all that kind of stuff in it. So before I can even utter those words, Professor Spatz says, oh, I was just in Mount Vernon last Friday. So I'm just thinking he just rolled through. Okay, I said, no big deal. So I said, okay, that's nice. He says, my father-in-law lived there. And when he said the street, I knew it wasn't on my street. It wasn't my neighborhood. I knew it was on the other side. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, that's nice. He said, maybe you know him. My first thought was, I don't know you. How would I know him?
How do you know him?
And you know what I mean? You said your father-in-law. I'm like, I'm thinking some old guy. How would I know him? Then when he says, maybe you know him, he said they used to own a fabric store. And I lost it, Chrissy. I had a briefcase on my shoulder. I never forget having a blue 3-piece suit, right? I had my briefcase on my person. And I jumped up and I say, Jack and Milton. And he says, yeah, Milton, my father-in-law. I said, wait a minute. You can't be serious. He said, yeah. I said, I used to work for them.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, Chrissy. I had just so happened 2 weeks prior, went by there because even with Jack and Milton there at the time, because it was in the 90s, their nephew Harvey was there.
Okay.
Running the store. So I just came by just to say hello. And I'm like, I was just there 2 weeks ago. Long story short, he vetted me, asked questions, and then he was like,
congratulations
with 2 other professors and see how you like it. If you like it, I'll give you your own class, That's how I was able to get into
life is just it's unexpected opportunities, but you have to put yourself in situation where those opportunities can present themselves. Now, I want to dig more into, the literacy background and why it's important with everything right now, because children are falling behind being at home in the pandemic. So how did you get into the whole concept of making literacy the forefront?
It's funny, and again, everything we touched on, because I write and I read and I think is the reason why I'm able to do what I'm doing. Between documentaries, the books, film, because I got my book into a screenplay as well. Being an adjunct professor, being a career specialist, a career counselor specialist, because I can read, I can write, and I can think. People don't realize that when you allow yourself to be challenged by words, learning the meaning, the how they work, why they work, and so forth and so on, you give yourself such a fighting chance to succeed. Because if you can read and write and think, you can get a job anywhere. Why? Because you can process things. Even if something is new, Chrissy, you can figure things out. You can say, okay, all right, I may not know this right now, but you give me a chance, boom, I'm going to get it. Because you have the confidence and wherewithal to know how and to know where the bones are. It's almost like going on a treasure hunt. Here's a map. Figure this thing out. When you can figure things out, the power of knowledge just comes. Once you have that power of knowledge, confidence comes. Once you're confident, you're there. What's happening now, particularly in our school system, like you mentioned about things that's being taken away, cursive writing is being taken away. A lot of places, they don't even do antonyms, synonyms, and homonyms, which is like the foundation of how you know what words mean. Okay. It's a shame when even grown folks don't realize how to use the word to. I'm not talking about TWO, the number. I'm talking about TOTOO.
TOO, yeah.
Or no, KNOW or NO.
Our literacy has changed so drastically, especially in the age of technology, where there are no words anymore. They're parts of words. You have a beginning and you have an end, and you're left to figure it out what's in between. That's with the texting, and sometimes you end up almost typing in chats at work, sometimes we use, short talk, and it takes away from literacy. It really does.
And see, I'm gonna tell you the most dangerous part of that, because Black boys are becoming, between Black on Black crime, which is right now is going at a
rampant,
unforsaken place, especially here in New York. I mean, it's just becoming like National Guard ready tragic, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm serious. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens at some point, because it's really tragic. But you're taking away an opportunity for them to learn something by taking away books, taking away cursive writing, taking away the foundation stuff, to where you're passing them through by having them press buttons.
Now, do you think that the lack of literacy attributes to how a lot of these kids grow up in the paths that they take, whether it be in crime?
It's no question. It's no question.
That they're connected.
It's without a doubt. I can't remember the story, but it was a New York Times article, and I learned this through older gentleman. Some years ago, there was a New York Times article that in 7 areas in certain parts of New York, the Bronx, certain parts of Manhattan, Harlem, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brownsville. You familiar with some of those parts? You used to do Brooklyn back in the day, but in certain parts of Brooklyn, the crime rate was real high. That's where most of the people came from prison. But I think it was like 70% of the prisoners came from those areas, underserved, as far as education, right, economics, and everything else. So you'll see where that pattern comes from. And then a lot of times, men in particular don't read their first book until they're in jail, because they're confined
and they have nothing else to do. Right.
Yeah, I mean, so you're doing 7 to 10 and a 7 by 10. All right. So that's what you
should have done as a child.
Exactly. But here's the thing though. But then enlightenment comes. So you get some guys that can go to jail and become smarter than their public defender lawyers.
Yes.
I mean, they do enough time in prison, and because they one thing about the brain, this is what I learned, Chrissy, with my writing and reasoning and stuff like that. Once you ignite that brain a certain way, that mind a certain way, it becomes like an engine. It's almost like a person. I don't know if you ever did this before. If you ever got your body in a certain type of shape, when you start working out,
your brain is a muscle. You train
it. Like when you're working on your body and you start doing 1 mile a day, to 2 miles a day, to 3 miles a day, and then your body gets to a certain peak, then it starts pushing itself, and all of a sudden you're doing 5 or 6 miles a day, just ripping it for no reason. You just
I can't wait to get there, because I did a mile and a half today and I am sore.
Right? No, but I'm gonna tell you something, because when you go through the soreness, I'm telling you, your body is gonna push you, and your mind's gonna push you, because you're getting to a certain peak. But that's what happens with the brain. Once you open that thing up and it starts working for you, then you're craving more knowledge. You're craving this. And so your brain is like, okay, I need more, I need more, I need more, I need more. It starts to thirst for it. And once that brain thirsts for knowledge, you ain't got time to be picking up a gun and shooting nobody. You ain't got time. You ain't got time to be gang banging like that. It's like you trying to make money legitimately. Yeah. You're trying to do things on a certain level. Like, I don't have time for that. But it's easy to put computers in schools and have kids just press the button because it looks good, because of technology.
And I noticed that even with my own child, where grades are fine, and I always tell her, even when she's reading to me, I said, but do you understand what you're reading? Because I can tell when you understand, and I can tell when you're calling out words. So there's a difference. Comprehension skills are like that. That is one of the most important parts of reading. If you're just reading, that's one thing. But if you comprehend what you're reading, then you're learning.
Here's the thing, I call it power learning, and that's learning with intention. When you can read something, no matter how difficult it is, and you can teach what you read, you can explain what you read, you're learning both sides of the coin, right, as a receiver and as a thrower. And when you learn like that, Chrissy, no one takes that away.
So let me ask this, Gerald. Now, with the statewide tests that are coming up, my daughter, she's getting ready to go into what they call EOGs here in North Carolina. it's really, we're out of time to get her where she needs to be. You know, I'm getting her the 30 minutes a day, you know, reading, answering the questions. And I'm just concerned that she's still not going to be where she needs to be at that level. And I'm a parent that I'm old school. I have books on my shelf right over here, books in her room. I like tangible items. I like to be able to flip pages. But these children, everything is on a screen where they're just touching it and it's flowing. So I don't know if it's sinking in the same way as it would sink in if it was a book in her hand.
Matter of fact, let me stop it right there. It may sound old school, but it's the best school. And I'm not gonna say it's a conspiracy, but it almost sounds like it. What you just said is deep. Now, my book is on ebooks and everything else, but I don't even tell people to buy it on ebook because it don't make sense to me. When you have a book in your hand, you remember we have 5 senses. And what is it? Help me with this. Sight.
Your sight,
touch,
your smell, your taste,
hearing,
your touch.
Right, smell and taste. Right. So I got it because I was able to do it. There's a reason why when you touch a book, there's virtue in that. There are studies out that have suggested that even touching a book, because we have our senses, touching a book, virtue comes from that. Virtue comes from that.
Right.
Matter of fact, okay, you know how we do in church. You get a minister that's about to give a word or something like that. Sometimes,
yes, your faith.
Sometimes they touch the Bible. Your dad, I'm sure you did that. Touch the Bible, pray on it, open it up. Okay, this is what I need to read.
Yeah, comes to knowledge.
But see, it's a reason why you touch it. The reason why you touch it because your senses, our bodies as human beings.
It's almost, if I can try to explain it as well, it's almost you're touching something, then you can remember it better because your senses can also remember how it felt, how it looked, and all of that. It comes to mind, so you'll be able to remember the content better.
What you just said is basically what I'm about to say. It's a reason why you touch something and then see it. Mm-hmm. When your 5 senses are the only thing you're not going to do is taste it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when you got 4 of those 5 senses that's working in concert with what you're trying to understand, you're in a certain level. When you just go on zip, you know, like by do you not, you know, it's like, I don't know. I guess it's almost like trying to put a microwave. It's like putting a turkey in the microwave for Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. You ever get it done in 3 minutes and then 3 hours, 4 or 5 hours. You can't. The shortcuts like that do not work because if it's not tangible learning to where you actually know and grasp what you're learning and allowing your senses to work, it's not going to work. And what I'm afraid of, and matter of fact, this happened in Baltimore, your old town. There was a young man. This came out in the paper, so I'm sure it was in Carolinas too. But it happened in Baltimore. I can't remember the school, but this young man was at the top of his class, well, in the high percentile of his class.
Right. They passed him, but he couldn't. He was failing.
He passed 3 classes in 4 years.
Yeah.
And he was ranked number 67th in his class.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was you having this kid do? And so, and I'm gonna tell you the scary part about that. They would have graduated this kid, and he probably would have had the
hardest time
capacity of a 3rd grader.
Right.
But yeah, you would have passed him as an 18-year-old, as a grown man. He probably can't
get him out the system. Mm-hmm.
He probably can't spell his name correctly. He probably can't write it cursive. You know what I mean? So he probably can't tell time with a clock. So you would have passed this kid, got him out, and he would have cap and gown and everything else. Family would have had low, whatever. But yet the kid can't even read. So to me, what you're trying to do is with these kids is you send them to a war with a slingshot.
That's right.
Without the rock. You ain't even giving them a rock. You just giving them a slingshot and say, figure it out.
Right.
But you're giving them a slingshot.
That's right.
I mean, and so you passing these kids 18, 19 years old, and they got 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade reading levels. I mean, how does that work? You know what I mean? But you press
that's also a system malfunction of the educational system as a whole, because they're so eager to get through this 12-year span.
No child left behind.
Right. And because no child can be left behind, pass them all. You know, I come from the city of the Baltimore, the city that reads, and 9 times out of 10, we all know that Baltimore, Maryland fails behind in most statistics when it comes to children that have capabilities of reading or furthering their education. So this has long been a problem, especially in Black and Brown communities. How do you see a way to end this outside of individuals? Because as an individual parent, I can do what I can for my child, but how do we fix the system that we're in for our children?
I would say this. You go to a lot of white communities, they're reading books. I went to a school in San Jose. Before I answer your question, some years ago, I had to go out there and give a speech. Now, this is Silicon Valley. Okay, now listen to this now. There's an article on this as well. You can Google it. They don't do a lot of computers in their schools. Now, this is Silicon Valley, the heartbeat
the heart of technology for this country. Yeah.
Come on now. You go to those schools, they doing treehouse learning. They're doing brick and mortar type stuff. They ain't doing our technology. And then when you find out that I think it was Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, they didn't let their children read. They didn't let their children play with technology like our children give it to, because they knew it was crack.
Right.
They made it.
I have to monitor the amount of time that she spends looking at a screen, as well as monitor my own. Now I have a system on my phone that will shut down at a certain time for social media to give me a break, because mentally we're so stuck on these systems until we don't even realize it.
It's digital crack. Now, go back to your point. There are people in society that's doing brick and mortar reading because they understand. Right? I have a list. I'll send it to you. It's a list of 10 cognitive cognitive benefits to reading, and 10 cognitive reasons to writing. Okay. One of the benefits was stress release.
Okay.
That tells you a lot what you need to know right there.
Yeah.
A lot of them was better vision, a lot of thinking. I mean, they're just crazy benefits. But
we notice that all the children now are wearing glasses, and it's not because they're reading books.
No, it's in the screen, and the flash screens is wearing them out too. Because you put these babies in front of a 60-inch TV, let them watch cartoons that alpha red light. I'm saying it right, red and blue, and then flashing lights.
I even had a friend that my suggestion to her was, her child liked, it was hard to get her child away from television, and my suggestion was, well, to help that child read more, put the captions on. If you can't sit down, if you don't have the time, to spend and read the book to the child, then maybe put the captions on and make them read the words. Something to fix the space that you can't be in at that moment. You know what I mean? So you're still missing a component.
Go to the question, huh? We have to get to the point where, huh?
You're still missing a component in the learning.
Absolutely. What has to happen right now is we have to go back to the old school way. Reading and writing. I'm talking about and writing with your hand. Oh, that's old school. The way it's no.
Oh.
Listen. If we don't know how to turn a computer on, listen. If we don't know how to turn a computer on and know where send is and know where the any key is, you know what I mean? If you know what I mean, then computers ain't gonna work for us either. If we can't write the word, we can't spell the word correctly on how to do certain things, computers ain't gonna work for us either. So technology ain't gonna work if you don't know how to if you can't spell technology, it ain't gonna work for you.
Yeah, you can't read the words that comes with technology.
It's not gonna work. But now think about this though. I'm gonna tell you what's powerful. I just told somebody this just the other day, or today. 400 some odd years ago, a black man, especially a black man, would be mutilated
for the right.
He even was trying to read and write. And when they did that, Christian, just so you know, I'm not trying to be graphic here. They would do that in the public. They wasn't doing that behind the barn.
Yes.
They was doing that. They were calling people, here, come in, watch this. They was giving you PTSD on steroids.
Yes. That's often an example that I use in my own home. Yes, with my child, I explained to her that the right to read and write in this country was not afforded to anyone that looked like
you were getting the things that were happening to
right
black men
to understand.
Now they will sell the women. They will sell off. They probably rape them and sell them off. But the men, they would just do some of the most ungodly things to these men, right? So that people could see it. 4 something years ago. Now you can't even get a child to read. I never forget a sister, a teacher. I can't remember what state she's in, but she hit me up on Twitter, and she said she was telling me my books are needed, they're timely. I mean, you know, all the good stuff in there. She said long overdue, and she said something that was so powerful. She said it seems like her boys, her students, are almost brainwashed not to want to read books.
Yeah,
that was powerful.
I've spoke on this movie before. But it is such a powerful movie that I am speaking on it again, that people must watch. And it was underrated. Book of Eli. The reason why that movie was so powerful and profound to me is because it explains to you how important it is to be able to read. Because during this apocalyptic time frame, no one could remember how to read or even what a book looked like. So the whole movie is based around Denzel Washington and being able to get a hold of a book that he has in his possession. That's the Bible. And one man that is chasing him through the city to get that book because he could read. And he felt that if he could read, he can tell people anything and make them believe anything because none of them could read. So to me, that movie was just extra powerful because it shows you that people can tell you anything if you don't have enough knowledge of yourself to want to understand how to read.
And he was blind too.
Yes, he was blind.
His character was blind. He was blind.
Not to tell the movie if you haven't seen it, but it is a must see. And I speak about it all the time. That it's just an underrated movie that he did, and a lot of people don't understand the concept.
And it's funny. And you said something that was also powerful. If a person doesn't have knowledge, then another person with knowledge or with some kind of wit to them can tell that person anything. They
have the power ultimately.
And have you believe it and have you running right through a wall for them. And it could be totally crazy. But yet, so-and-so said it, I believe it. But you never investigated, you never vetted it, you never, read things for yourself to see how that made sense. Even if you want to Google it to see, okay, let me just check this out. You never did that. You just went with what was said to them, and you ran with it. And now back in the Civil Rights Day, and back when they was trying to get us, back when we were trying to be included, we're fighting for inclusion to be able to go to certain schools and everything like that. These black people were so educated, so ready to do this because they knew if we went to certain schools and we failed, we could mess up for everybody else.
Yeah.
So they went to these schools armed and ready. They was like, give me this subject, give me this, I'm gonna knock it out the park. I mean, reading was just, it was like, we have to do this. Writing, we have to do this. Being able to calculate and add and subtract and all that kind of good stuff, we have to do it because if we fail at this, those behind us won't have a chance.
I mean, even reading now, W.E.B. Du Bois, some of his writings, I have some of his manuscripts and some of his books. Just reading his words, it's like, wow, this man was this educated then.
He was way
before his time, but just to think the education that he had and other people like him, Booker T. Washington, Benjamin Banneker, all of these people had the education, and some of them were self-taught. My grandmother was self-taught. This was a woman that she was math, just like that, could spell a word just like that, because these things weren't given to them. They had to go out here and earn it on their own. And I think that's what we're missing right now. Everything is just given to us so easily that we don't hunger for the knowledge of it anymore. Well, with these last final minutes, we have about 5 minutes. What is it that you want people to know about your books, where to find them, who you are more? Yeah. How do they reach you and contact you?
I have a website. It's called The Hero Book Series. That's all in the THE Hero, HERO book series, and or you just Google My Friend My Hero, Gerald with a J, and not only do I have books, right? This is book one. This is book two, Hero My Hero 2, and this is book 3. And the 4th book is in the incubator. We're working on it. I also have a curriculum for the books where I'm trying to get young boys in particular to be able to read and write on a high level. So I have unit assessments. I have a teacher's edition to where they have the answers to it. And I have the student workbook where they can write in them. Now this is the one for just book 1. Book 2 has a curriculum. And I'm sorry, this is book 2. Book 1 has a curriculum, and so does book 3. Book 3 will be ready by next week.
A different level.
Well, yeah, the way it's been constructed that it can go SPED, general ed, and it can go from 5th grade to 12th grade. Okay. And it's funny because a lot of times when people say, "What grades are for?" and whoever can handle it, right? You know what I mean? And I mean that because unfortunately, every 10th grade is not reading on 10th grade level.
No, they're not.
You know what I mean? So every 5th grade is not reading on 5th grade level, but and we have it so that it's structured to where SPED can read it as well as general ed. You can even do it as an IEP because the way it's written, and it's based on my books. So it's my books that's an easy read, and then you go to the curriculum where I have vocabulary words, how to use the word usage, mood, tone. I mean, it's a smorgasbord of literacy with that, and I don't think anybody is doing this on this level, especially for books for Black and brown men. Yeah. And I think what happened too, that when I approached certain people, it was a shock because it's like, okay, how are you coming with this? You know what I mean? Like it's enough to have these kind of books itself, and each book has the word hero in them for a reason. So hero, a hopeful hero, my friend, my hero, he was my hero too, right? And the 4th book is Hoop Hero, and the reason why I have the word hero is because when young Black and brown boys see, even girls too, see the characters and read the book, they'll see that they're no different than they are.
Okay.
Right, or it might have been somebody that they know that they remind them of. So I get a lot of that, and I'm gonna tell you what's being more fascinating. I'm getting a lot of reviews on Amazon from older people that are reading the book. I'm talking about people even older than me. Wow. And because I used to tell people when people ask me, well, what's the age range? I'll say 8 to 80. And I meant that on purpose because the way I wrote the book, I started in 1983. It got published in 92. So it took 8 years to get my book published. Matter of fact, I didn't even tell you this. Before I got rejected 42 times over an 8-year period. So after I met Nikki Giovanni in 84, my book didn't get published until 92. And she gave me a review for it. So that's all right.
That is very important for people to know that no matter what it is that you are set on, if you know that it is what you're supposed to do, don't give up on it. No matter how many doors are closed, it is going to be a door that will open for you. If it is for you and it is truly your calling, it will make its way through. I really, really enjoyed having you on here this evening, Gerald. I want to actually bring you back right before school starts, because we get ready to end school.
Sure.
So right before school starts again, hopefully maybe in September, to talk about some of the things that can help these children while they're coming back into the buildings. Sure. So, we'll get together and we'll talk, but I really, really enjoyed this edition of Chrissy Comments Conversation, where we really just dug in deep on literacy and how it can help us and how it shapes our everyday lives. I want you all to please like, share, and comment on this. This episode is brought to you by me. I don't own the rights to the background music, but I do own the rights to me. Remember, you can always find me on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on anchor.fm. So I have different platforms, different ways for you to listen, different ways for you to share. And until then, I'll see you soon. Bye.
God bless.
Thank you, Gerald.
All right.